Hello indie game fan, linear action platformers are nice when you get sick of Metroidvanias, beginning with Gun Devil, a recent release that's completely free to play, where you have to rescue your kidnapped wife from the caramelized dumbass and his pimp legion, having an irreverent tone and has great action. While I do see its flaws, I do think that Panzer Paladin is a neat little game where you pilot the powerful Paladin power armor and go around the globe to take on demonic invaders, which just so happens to take the form of mythological monsters on Earth. The highlight has to be the pixel art, which is very faithful to games of that era, which is no surprise since it comes to us from developer Tribute Games. There are both in and out of armor segments, even having a neat craft your own weapon system which is largely cosmetic but does add additional flavour to the game. I felt that the issues had to do with checkpointing since it can be tough in that old school kind of way, but it deserves its spot for the action. One of the most amazing games to ape a 2D Sonic title is Spark the Electric Jester, one that is not shy about its inspiration since the opening seconds of this trailer literally has the character running into a loop Sonic style. This was released in April 2017, which was before Sonic Mania, so at the time people were really craving a good 2D Sonic game, and this fulfilled expectations. Since then, there have been two numbered sequels which took the game into 3D, but I do think that the original is still worth a play. An amazing looking game from 2019 is Astray, a pixel art platformer with interesting controls where you play as a blob creature that reawakens in a post-apocalyptic world. You are jumping from platform to platform, where the creature has the ability to latch onto the heads of enemies and to control them to be used in combat and puzzles. Additionally, you can access the memories of these creatures as well, contributing to the world building, being a beautiful game worth a play. I really like Hell is Other Demons, level-based pixel art action platformer that throws various weapons and enemies at you. There are optional challenges for each level, such as not using a gun, where jumping on the heads of enemies does damage them as well, with an almost arcade-like feel which is very awesome. Another beautiful pixel art title that I have to mention is INMOST, one that does lean more towards a puzzle platformer, but does have action elements as well. It is one of the more gorgeously animated games set in a world full of mystery. There are horrendous monsters lurking in the wilderness, where the three protagonist structure is neat since all of them do play differently. There is an interesting narrative to uncover as well as you discover the links between these characters, where it simply is a treat for the eyes. A different type of gorgeous is Bladed Fury, one that has beautiful hand-drawn art rather than pixel art, and in line with the theme, draws upon Chinese mythology and art for the amazing look. You play as a princess exiled from her kingdom after her father, the Duke, was betrayed and killed by one of his officers, returning to seek vengeance and to free her sister. The combo-based action is the highlight, where some of the bosses have an almost Sekiro-like quality to their design, having a great game feel and is a must-play. I've said it before and I'll say it again, I love the look of The Eternal Castle Remastered, a game that released in 2019, which was supposed to be a remaster of a game from 1987, but the twist is that such a game never existed. Rather, the developers are paying tribute to that era of games from the 2-bit CGA look, where I'm pretty sure that I came across similar looking games growing up in the 90s and is quite a retro throwback. It is a cinematic action platformer that mixes sci-fi, the occult, the arcane, cyberpunk and aliens, with some very impressive set pieces and environments to explore, making it one of the more unique indie games. "2021 was a pretty good year for action platformers, where I have to mention the Legend of Tianding, coming to us from a Taiwanese developer that tells the tales of one of their folk heroes, said to be similar to Robin Hood, as he takes on the corrupt elite. It is also set in colonial Japanese Taiwan, which is always an interesting setting and time period, even more so for Asians like me, since this era in time has been well represented in Asian cinema, with movies on Wong Fei-hong and Ip Man for example, but not so much in games. This has an amazing art style that evokes comic books, combining such panels with the 2.5D look, which is amazing. The combo-focused combat is a highlight as well, with additional nuggets like mini-games, making for an excellent game not to be missed. I do have to give a very special mention to Freedom Planet as well, an action platformer from 2014, which, if you remember what I said about Spark the Electric Jester earlier, was a time when there wasn't any good 2D Sonic games, so, as is the case now, indie developers to the rescue. Visually, I think that this game still holds up and is actually pretty vibrant looking, with an interesting 3-character setup, each of which have their own variants on the main story campaign. There's a neat central story as well to keep things moving, but it's honestly still very impressive in 2022 for an 8-year-old game to be this good. The best part is that there is a sequel releasing this month after many delays, so if you have not played this, why not pick it up? "2021 also gave us Cyber Shadow, a pixel art ninja action platformer that has drawn comparison to Ninja Gaiden, but is not that old school kind of punishing and is actually pretty neat. The world has been overrun by synthetic life forms, and you play as the last survivor of your clan, having to uncover ancient secrets and to fight back. While there is somewhat of an interconnected world and light backtracking, I wouldn't go so far as to call this a Metroidvania, but there are plenty of upgrades and abilities that keeps this compelling. Again, the pixel art look is fantastic, paying tribute to that era of games, and as a side note, if you have it on Switch, there is integration with Shovel Knight amiibos since Yacht Club Games did help with publishing, so if you trust the judgment of those guys, be sure to get this. Pixel art, pixel art, pixel art. If you know me, it will be no surprise since I love this art form, which must have stemmed from my childhood with the games that I grew up with, where Hunt Down is the title of interest here. You play as bounty hunters in a cyberpunk world, sent on a mission to take out various gang leaders and their armies to free the city from the corrupt. It is self-aware but is contrasted with a self-serious narrator, adding that to the side-scrolling shooting, cover mechanic and variety in weapons to form a pretty impressive game. Boss fights are a highlight as well, with each gang having a unique feel to them, so it checks many of the boxes that makes a game like this great. Speaking of side-scrollers, Blazing Chrome is definitely worth a mention, one that is basically Contra Rogue Core in all but name, coming to us from Brazilian developer Joy Masher, who are experts at pixel art. Honestly, I cannot tell you what the story of this game is about, but it doesn't really matter, being an all-action title that just feels great to play. There are plenty of weapons that you can switch between and even co-op support, so grab a friend and dive in, but be aware that this is old school difficult with a continual system just like the arcades and is an excellent throwback. Hands down, one of the best games in this genre is Katana Zero, being one of the most highly rated games on Steam while sitting on a massive number of reviews and copies sold. And that is for good reason, since this pixel art slasher is excellent. It was published by Devolver and has a Hotline Miami feel to it, with the brutality of the action, having instant death combat for both you and your enemies, which is coupled with instant reload that keeps the action moving. There is a larger story told through our protagonist visiting a therapist, which is interesting, but there is DLC in development which you should keep an eye on. Shovel Knight needs no further introduction, since the Blue Burrower is perhaps the flag bearer for indie games, but I cannot stress how much value there is in the treasure trove, with 4 standalone campaigns and the multiplayer focused Shovel Knight Showdown, where the success of this shows the tremendous potential of indie games, and if you are looking for Metroidvanias, watch this video instead.